If one was asked to describe the northern suburb known as Sandton, the words glitzy, elegant, and snobbish might utter from the lips of the speaker. Mention of exclusive sports clubs, extravagant soirees, and expensive vehicles tend to follow these words during the conversation, along with many other details highlighting the life and glamour of the wealthy living in that part of town. As one can imagine, places like this are sure to garner rumors like maggots in dead flesh, and the most recent tale relating to this upper-class suburb makes mention of a particular individual, the Man in Black. Rumors say that he is a tall fellow who keeps a briefcase at his side at all times, the leather case black as soot, matching the man's attire, save for the bright red tie peeking out from the collar of his collared shirt. A fedora hangs tilted forward atop his head to hide most of his facial features, revealing only pasty pink lips that stretch into a deceptively knowing smile, as though every secret thought to ever cross your mind plays back in his. Talks of his true nature had swept through the high walls and electrified fence like a bad smell. Claims that he was not really human arose from the lips of those brave enough to even speak of the man aloud. Many, however, spoke of him in quiet reverence as though fearing that the mere mention of his name would summon him to their presence. The man was supposedly a door-to-door salesman, though no one had actually been able to verify these rumors. In fact, residents preferred to speak to him through the noise-saturated intercom system, sure to halt any further conversation with a satisfactory, if not anxious, click of a button. Those unfortunate enough to have met the fellow in person cringe in distress, muttering something about his countenance, the way he spoke, and especially the way he smiled, which disturbed them deeply. He was also a prompt man, arriving at exactly the same time. Through rain or shine, he would be there, ringing the intercom and waiting patiently for it to be answered. As soon as a voice responded to his call, he would, in a low voice, ask to meet the owner of the house. Most of those who recognized his voice would quickly respond with an excuse or abruptly put down the intercom and wait anxiously until the paranoia seeping through their bodies dissipated. Those who were lulled into his pitch could never speak of the ordeal afterwards. What was most intriguing about the man was that it did not matter how long a particular individual occupied his attention. He would arrive at precisely the same time, every time. No one had ever seen him run between houses, let alone drive, but somehow he managed to be on time. Always. Marlene Lowe was not an overly busy woman running a business from the comfort of her home and only when necessary leaving her abode to meet with a client somewhere within the lofty Sandton restaurants. A widow, having also lost her child in the same tragic boating accident that had taken her husband, found her work to be cathartic. Stress and pressure were enough to dull the pain in her chest during the day, and losing herself in the glamour and nightlife of the glitzy Sandton night scene covered the evenings. During a particular morning, as she left her front door on her way to a business meeting, she caught sight of a dark silhouette standing at her gate. At the same time, the intercom chime rang softly from within the house. She considered going back in to answer, but figuring that no harm would come from through her reinforced entrance gate, she made her way to it. Staring at the man through the gaps in the gate made her feel uneasy, and when he smiled at her, she felt a chill snake up her spine. She shivered. Marlene Lowe. Good morning, the man said amiably, a smooth, deep voice that she recognized but could not place. A fine day, isn't it? She nodded a response with knotted brow and pursed lips, confused by the man's knowledge of her name. Sensing her unease, the man continued. Indeed it is. Name's Finn, a salesman of sorts, and here to sell you something specific and personal. Something that will surely be of great worth to you. I doubt you have anything I would want. Also, I am quite busy if you... Meetings come and go, Marlene. But there are some things that cannot be pushed aside. Finn cut in. He stepped in closer to the gate, and the wide-eyed woman, as he whispered. Memories. For instance. Why? They never leave. What do you mean? Loneliness. It is both a blessing and a curse, but what I have can ease all that pain, all suffering. I'm not lonely or in pain or suffering, Marlene managed to utter, attempting to keep her rising unease at bay and hoping that the lie was not as obvious as it felt in her chest. Denial is one of the few steps toward overcoming loss. Marlene thought that she could feel Finn's eyes on her, only to realize she could not see the man's eyes. The sunlight cast a shadow over his face, revealing only his thin lips. Well, I'm quite... May I come in? So we can discuss how I can help you overcome this deep sadness that you hide behind all that glam, Marlene. Marlene felt her heart catch in her chest. The compression was undeniable. It scratched against her toughened hide. The chill on her spine continued to rise. I don't know who you think you are, but you don't know me. Gaining some composure, she breathed out slowly and unclenched her clenching fists. Now, if you don't mind, I'm on my way out. Her hands did not feel comfortable at her side. Then again, they did not feel comfortable anywhere at the moment. Not even to reach for the gate so she could open it. You'll have to come back another... Oh... But a little bit of your time surely can't hurt, the man replied. The chill that had started at her spine suffused the entirety of her back, and she quivered visibly. The sudden change in the man's voice shortened her breath as a hand involuntarily rose to her bosom. Excuse me? Rather than answer, Finn pulled out his briefcase from behind his legs, though Marlene could have sworn it hadn't been there before. Bending down, he unsnapped the golden clasps with a loud click, placing the case on his knees and opening it. Although she was still feeling uneasy, curiosity clawed at her thoughts as she stood on her toes to see what could be inside the briefcase. Well, I have here something I think you might want. The man continued to speak, his deep voice a few octaves higher, and in some way childlike. To Marlene, however, the voice's familiarity struck a chord within her that she was sure she had buried. The hand against her bosom shook with emotion, but she held it back. There is nothing you have that I would want. She spat the last word out vehemently, attempting to keep her emotions in check. As though the man was wasting her time. But in truth, she was hoping he would continue to speak. To hear that voice again, it was familiar in a melancholic way. Oh, but
But I'm sure I can change your mind.
The briefcase was closing. Marlene stared apprehensively. The voice was obvious now, even as Finn closed the briefcase, but did not look right up at her, as he quietly asked, "Right, Mom?" Marlene gasped. The edges of her eyes began to tingle, and she fought back the imminent tears with a deep breath. Only one person ever spoke to her like that.
Timothy?
The word tumbling from her quivering lips as her eyesight blurred and the man at her feet became nothing more than a vague contour in the shape of a child. She quickly wiped the tears off her face, and yet she could not seem to get a clear vision of the shape ahead of her.
Mom?
The shape asked. Marlene, with tears bubbling to the fore, was suddenly overwhelmed by emotion as she scrambled to open the gate. The possibility of her child alive and calling for her was enough to forget the man. Clouded by the hope sweeping through her body, she reached for the contour that was her son standing on the other side of the gate. Swinging the gate open, she spread her arms, wrapping around the shoulders of the boy on the other side, squeezing him against herself as undulated love poured forth from her chest.
Timothy! You are here! You are here!
Marlene's body shook with emotion.
Why, Mom? Why did you leave me?
The boy cried against her, pulling at her emotion-riddled heart.
Timothy, I would never leave you. Never!
Her hands were suddenly bare. The body she was clutching, empty air in her hands. She fell to the ground on her knees and wailed loudly into the air. She could still feel the boy's warmth and the smell of his shampoo. Sadly, I can't let Timothy stay out for too long. The man's voice spoke up, back to its normal tone.
Please!
Marlene cried freely now, unable to see the man through her tears, but seeing the dark shape ahead of her still crouched.
Bring him back! Please, bring him back.
Her sobs clogged her throat, attempting to speak, but no words came. The man stepped forward. Oh, I don't know. Timmy here hasn't seen you in...
I'll do anything!
Even as the words left her lips, she feared what they meant to such a man. The rumors, could they be true? What kind of man was he? She watched Finn's silhouette rise as he stood up, and a thought flashed across her mind. She tried to wipe the tears off her face. From this position, she would be able to see his, but her vision was blurry. In all honesty, there is nothing you could possibly offer to one like myself. No. Instead, I make the offers, and... Finn smiled. Marlene could not see the smile, but she felt it. It crawled along her back in a sensation that created various mental images of what Finn's smile looked like. He began to whistle, a tune soft and melodic, a nursery rhyme of sorts. He began to sing in time with the whistling. A feat seemingly impossible had Marlene not heard it with her own ears. You shall pay an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a hand for a hand. He paced in front of Marlene, who could only stare up at the silhouette still frantically clawing at her face. A wound for a wound, a stripe for a stripe. A life for a life. A sharp stab shot through Marlene's leg. She fell to the floor on her side. Reaching toward her leg in an attempt to soothe it, shock met her groping fingers as they felt nothing where the leg should have been. Her chest hurt, but it was not a physical pain, it was fear. She attempted to move her missing leg and felt the sensation of movement, but there was nothing. Through the blur of her tears, she saw a leg in front of her. Just a single leg, but it did not belong to her. She recognized the short, stubby toes that wriggled freely against the ground, thin string attached to each digit. Shock from recognition settled into her like a blanket, washing over her anguish to replace it with a deep, heart-thumping fear. Another burst of pain moved higher up her leg. At the same time, the leg in front of her simmered to life as one side of a pair of shorts fluttered into existence above the standing leg. The recently formed knee held another thin string at its joint. Comprehension was like a fog seeping into her mind, every inch of it making clear what a couple of minutes ago she would have denied. She began to scramble away from the forming body, wide-eyed and frantic.
An eye for an eye.
She lost her other leg to fall on her stomach, the stumps that were her thighs attempting to pull her back into the house.
A tooth for a tooth. Hand for a hand.
Her arm was gone. Before she could balance herself, a short cry as her chin smashed against the floor.
A wound for a wound. A stripe for a stripe.
The forming body was unmistakable. The thin arm, bubbling to life right before her eyes, was her son. The fact that it was suspended in midair did not disturb her as much as the strings hanging from the boy's joints. She twitched her cheek, bleeding from the fall, as the left side of her face lost sensation in tiny pinpricks, while the face of the boy she once called her son materialized. With a single eye left and half of her body, she saw the man place a fedora atop the boy's formed head, falling askew on the half-formed boy's head, strings collapsing to attach to his lips, pulling it up into a smile.
A life for a life.
The single eye roved in its socket to settle on her. Recognition rose in the bright green eyes, blonde eyebrow lifting in joy.
What do you say, Marlene? Would you give your life to bring your son back? A life